Hello and welcome to Wasted Plotential, where we discuss the wasted potential of our favourite plotlines. Marvel TalkOn just came out, bringing the world of Marvel Comics back to the FGC. So, to celebrate, let's look back at the last Marvel fighting game that wasn't Marvel Contest of Champions, the sponsor of this other video. Wait for it, hold on, it's going to be so funny. Welcome back, people who prematurely skipped forward. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was a victim of several things, from movie synergy forcing the removal of the franchise's foundational characters, to movie synergy forcing a horrendous photorealistic aesthetic that fans spent years trying to replace with mods, to movie synergy forcing the removal of all the classic themes, replacing them with generic, bland, MCU-esque orchestral themes, to movie synergy forcing yet another story about the bloody Infinity Stones, to just movie synergy ruining everything. But what if that wasn't the case? What if the plot was allowed to be about Marvel and Capcom in unison instead of the Infinity Saga with Capcom characters thrown in? What if the roster included some of Marvel's best characters, regardless of whether or not Disney had the film rights at the time? What if the story took advantage of the crossover aspects for more than just a couple of small scenes that exemplify what fans actually want in these things? That's what I'm here to cook up today. For simplicity, we'll propose a roster that features most of UMVC3's cast plus the newcomers of Infinite, and a few NPCs who could join the roster later. I won't go super in depth on that, but generally assume that if a character was in one of these two games, they're in this story as well, even if they're not on the roster yet. The story begins with a take on the Infinity Gauntlet. I know I was just complaining about that, but stick with me here. Thanos is facing off with the Avengers, the X-Men, the Guardians, and maybe the Fantastic Four. Everyone's united against Thanos. Some are turned to stone like in Thanos' Marvel Superhero stage. Imagine this as a larger scale version of that game's climax, with the characters from that roster getting big moments here as a fun bit of fan service for long-time MVC fans. The heroes are able to overcome Thanos and deliver a massive blow to the gauntlet, maybe from Mjolnir or a similarly powerful strike. Thanos manages to portal out with just the space and reality gems. Yes, gems as a nod to classic Marvel Capcom collabs. The gathered heroes begin plans to search for Thanos and his gems, while also separating the ones that they've retrieved. Thanos returns to Mistress Death, tail between his legs. She taunts him, saying, "Even with the greatest power in this universe, you still could not deliver what you promised me." Referring of course to the eradication of half of all life. Rather than disheartening him, Death's words invigorate Thanos. They inspire him with a new idea. She said, "This universe. If the gems aren't enough, why not seek power from other realities?" Thanos forges a new gauntlet, like that seen in Infinite, designed to steal great powers from 6 universes. But not from other Marvel universes like 2099 or What If the Fantastic Four were the original Marvel bullpen. No, the heroes would be expecting that. He aims for powers unlike anything yet seen in this reality. Act 1 commences with Thanos entering Capcom universes and stealing major powers from them, like the power of Sparda, Ouroboros or Las Plagas, beautiful effects, etc., stealing them from people and places to augment himself. Parallels can be drawn to specific gems like VFX to time, or just pick 6 cool powers. Each time he siphons a power, Thanos returns to the Marvel Universe, the Capcom cast pursuing to retrieve those powers or avenge their friends' defeats. For example, he can steal the Satsui no Hado from Ken or Psycho Power from Bison, prompting Ryu and Chun-Li to give chase. These settings can use specific points in their respective timelines, like during the climax of Street Fighter V or after Resident Evil 5, as the settings we briefly glimpse. This is one of the things that I think should be done differently from how Capcom crossovers usually go. The Capcom worlds are, as in their respective canons, separate. The Versus games make them one world for simplicity's sake, but they never explore the idea beyond the surface. The BSAA exists by 2006 in Resident Evil, so did they ever investigate the Willamette outbreak from Dead Rising? Did Chun-Li's Interpol ever investigate Umbrella? Has Dante ever hunted the Darkstalkers? Why are Joe and Arthur such freakazoid weirdos? Until Capcom makes a Capcom All-Stars that explores these ideas, keep the universes separate. As the Capcom casts start pouring in, the Marvel heroes move to intercept, clashing with the invaders in a series of misunderstandings that lead to some cool matchups. This is the key part of a crossover that MVCI skipped entirely, starting us at the end of Act 1 with only a handful of times where the heroes get to fight each other, usually because of mind control, in this fighting game where the vast majority of the cast are good guys. If we're not going to show how the characters first meet, I honestly don't see the point in doing the crossover, because that's the most interesting part. In my version, we do. Cooler heads prevail when characters like Captain America and Chun-Li start talking and exchange information. Now the Marvel heroes unite, bringing their Capcom rivals together to chase down Thanos. Once they do, they find that he has ascended into a new form, Shin Thanos. Armed with power from 6 major Capcom universes, he wipes the floor with the unprepared heroes, forcing them to retreat. With this power, Thanos no longer needs the gems and sends them off to who knows where. At Avengers Tower, a list is compiled of the powers stolen, along with information on each power's capabilities and some samples scanned from those with similar powers, say scanning Dante to understand how the power of Sparta works. While this is being done, scans pick up serious dimensional fluctuations in 6 locations. It turns out that Thanos' actions have destabilized the boundaries between realities, and the gems are now acting as anchors, pulling in Capcom worlds and merging them into the Marvel Universe in those locations. The heroes split up into 6 teams to retrieve each gem. I don't have full scenarios conceived for them all, but I do have some ideas. Each gem is in the possession of a villain or set of villains. The hero teams are chosen based on the villains or gem they'll be dealing with. Reality is found by Ultron and Sigma, who've taken over the Sentinels and are opposed by heroic robots and cyborgs led by Iron Man. Magneto has the Mind Gem, so characters with strong wills led by Captain America go against him. Soul is possessed by Dormammu and Jedda's alliance of supernatural villains, Doctor Strange leading a team of supernatural heroes to oppose them. Power is being fought over by Doctor Doom, Akuma and Virgil, Dante leading a team of powerhouses to get it before they can. Space is in space, Strider and Viper joining a space team to deal with Marvel's cosmic side. But the one I've spent by far the most time thinking about is the Time Gem. This one wound up inside an AIM facility and has begun merging with the Resident Evil universe, creating the Umbrella Lab from MVCI, one of the more inspired ideas the game had. Chris and Jill fill the rest in on what Umbrella is all about, and a team is put together to go and get the gem, consisting of zombie killers and characters with healing factors that we'll just say makes them immune, regardless of what Marvel Zombies portrays. This team then features Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Frank West, Wolverine, X-23 and Deadpool. Upon arriving, they're attacked by the symbiote zombies and Nemesis. Instead of Nemesis being fought by Chris, who never encountered it, with no indication that it's been killed in Capcom land, this story acknowledges Nemesis' history, death and extreme toughness. Its presence is a result of the Time Gem, prompting Jill to lead a strike force against it to take it down. Knowing it won't stay down for long, they move on ahead. At the heart of the facility, they find MODOK, going through Umbrella files and plotting with the gem. And when the heroes rock up, he reveals his partner in crime, Albert Wesker. He, like Nemesis, has been revived through the gem, MODOK having learned about him through the Umbrella files and rewound his personal timeline to bring him back. Wesker hasn't known someone with the same morbid scientific inclinations as himself since his days working with William Birkin, so he and MODOK get along very well. And between the two of them and scans done upon their arrival, they know a lot about the personal histories of the gathered heroes. With the gem, Wesker reverts them all to earlier points in their timelines. Chris becomes his skinnier Resi 1 self, making his melee attacks weaker and possibly removing some of his weapons. Jill becomes her Resi 5 self, back under Wesker's control. Frank becomes his Dead Rising 1 self, freshly infected, knowing that if the villains escape now, he'll be a zombie within a day. Wolverine reverts to Weapon X, a mindless berserker lashing out at everyone. Deadpool is his old mercenary self from the New Mutants days, not really giving a crap about being a hero. And X-23 is either her younger self from her time being experimented on, able to be manipulated with her trigger scent, or left unaffected due to the secrecy of her history if we need to give her more to do. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, Chris, Frank and maybe Laura have to team up to fight the other three and Wesker and MODOK and Nemesis Phase 2. They manage to get through to their comrades after fending them off and they rejoin the fight, and together they take down the villains. Chris gets the Time Gem from them, using it to restore his team, revert Wesker to his unpowered Resi 1 self, and freeze Nemesis in time. He and Jill then kill Wesker and blow up the base to destroy Nemesis and the evils of both labs, MODOK only making it out in custody because the two X-Men show restraint. Those are the kinds of scenarios the story should have had, making interesting character groups for specific missions, exploring the character relationships and histories instead of keeping them at a dull surface level to make it easy for newcomers, and having the central MacGuffins actually factor into a story moment in an interesting way instead of just gameplay. The pieces were all there, but due to low time or low ambition, the story lacked much in the way of interesting scenarios. Sure, Chris, Frank, Spidey and Hagar teaming up against Nemesis is cool on paper, but it's just a gameplay fight between a Capcom icon and 4 dudes who've never encountered it before. And put some fighting in the cutscenes too so we can see how they work together against these overwhelming odds outside of the rigid setup of gameplay. Act 2 caps off with the heroes reconvening with the gems. The game has the roadblocks of the cast getting infected with the Sigma virus, adding a ticking clock component to their mission, the need to create a special gauntlet, and one of the stones being taken by Jeddah. Swap out the Sigma virus with Las Plagas or something, and we still have them needing to rush to face down the villain. A villain can still steal a gem, but a team goes to retrieve it instead of just Dante, while the rest rush to face down Thanos in the event the gem can't be retrieved in time to wipe him out. And instead of creating a gauntlet that Thanos steals so he can throw a Hadouken at death death in the mid-credit scene, Tony instead leads a team of scientists to make siphoning devices to take Thanos' powers away in the event the plan with the gems falls through. Alongside all this, the dimensional barriers are growing weaker, and the gems coming together is making them an even stronger anchor, pulling in other universes to allow other Capcom worlds to get focus, like Okami and Phoenix Wright, letting us have some fun side material, including DLC scenes with the new characters being added. Act 3 sees the heroes split up to make their own ways to where Thanos awaits, saving people along the way, which allows us to include these side sequences here. Brad Spencer's world is merging into a Hydra base where he releases the Winter Soldier. Londo from Power Stone merges with London, where Psylocke and Falcon meet. Punisher roams the streets of Metro City, and Hagar needs to stop him from outright murdering the Mad Gear gang, etc. Eventually, the gem retrieval team succeeds, catching up to the rest as they push through Thanos' forces and reach the man himself. An attempt is made with the gems to undo Thanos' ascension, or to kill him outright depending on the user. I think a Capcom character getting the gauntlet as the Marvel caster getting knocked down would be fun. But either the merging of universes is making the gems much weaker, similar to how JLA/Avengers depicted them as having no power in the DC universe, or Shin Thanos is just so powerful now with these Capcom abilities that the gems don't recognise him as a native to the Marvel universe anymore, and he's resistant or outright immune to their power. With no choice left, Cap rallies the heroes and leads the charge against Thanos. My concept for the fight comes from what I assumed the final fight of Infinite actually was, when Dante and Carol rocked up to fight Ultron Sigma's final form, only to learn that they just picked two random characters with big releases coming up on the same day. Thanos here is incredibly powerful, able to eliminate a hero in just a few hits, but the player has the full hero roster, new ones replacing the Fallen, making for a war of attrition until either Thanos or the entire hero roster of the game goes down. The heroes are able to use the siphons to rip the powers from Thanos, likely wielded by characters from those universes because that makes the siphon stronger somehow. Once stripped of the power, Thanos is left at the mercy of the gems and is turned to stone or something, taken by the Guardians to lock him away where he'll never be a threat again. The Capcom characters return to their universes with the siphons to set things right, the universes needing time to separate again. If a mid-credit scene is required, I think a scene of a Capcom villain making it over and either acquiring a Marvel power or teaming up with a Marvel villain would work well enough. Maybe a depowered Bison finds the remains of Thanos' gauntlet and starts targeting Marvel characters to take powers like the Iron Fist, a Spirit of Vengeance, and the Phoenix Force. That seems like it could be a fun inversion for a sequel or a DLC or a comic tie-in. In the end, MVCI had a solid foundation from which a game with a cinematic story mode could have really excelled, especially with supplemental material via DLC or tie-in comics. But the obsessive need for every Marvel thing to look and feel and act just like the films held back or even damaged several projects from the time, which would have been more interesting if they'd been allowed to use the comics as the source material instead of the live-action version. MVC was built on the X-Men and having fun with the rosters of both companies, not the Avengers, a substantial focus on Marvel over Capcom, or not letting voice actors play characters from both companies even if they were the primary voices for them at the time. Whoever was in charge and made all these poor decisions, I'm glad they're gone, because what we've gotten since has been far more fulfilling for fans of Marvel. It's just a shame we had to lose MVC to get here. If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended video is The Infinity Stones Beyond the Gauntlet by Sir Superhero. It highlights a few things that could be utilised in a story like this, like the Infinity Circuit, but I felt it best to keep things simple here. Good video though.